All right, guys, we are back with another one. It is the week of May 18th to the 22nd, and this week we are solving for slope in 3 different ways. First, I'm going to go ahead and define or remind you guys what slope is, and this is probably review for some of you. So, slope describes the steepness of a line. But some of you guys remember it as the rate of change, or rise over run, change in y over the change in x, which can also be written as delta y over delta x. Delta just means change, it's a triangle. Or you guys remember it as the m in y equals mx plus b, the m. And importantly for this specific video, we need to remember the slope formula, which is m equals y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Okay, so different ways, different things that you might remember about slope. I do want to go over the type of slopes first that there are before we go into problems. So let's take a look at the graphs right on the left. The first one, if you look at the graph going from left to right, it is going up. And if your line is going up from left to right, we can say that the slope is positive. If it is going down from left to right, it is negative. The slope is negative. Okay, but what if you see a line that's just horizontal, it's just flat, straight? Then the slope equals 0. Okay, but if your line is going straight up and down, it's vertical, this slope is actually undefined. All right, so 4 different types of slope. So for this lesson, like I said, we're learning to solve for slope in 3 different ways. The first way is when we are given 2 points. Okay, so the question is, how do we solve for slope when we are given 2 points? So let's look at this first example. Let's say I give you the point 0, 2, and actually let's make that -2. And I have 3, 4. Okay, 2 points. How do I solve for slope? First thing is remember the slope formula. M equals y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Second thing, let's label our points so that we don't mess up. Keeps us organized. So for the first point, I can say this is x1, y1, right? Because it's an x and y coordinate. And then I have x2 and y2. Now I know which numbers to plug into my formula. So let's do that. All right. So I know that it's m that we're solving for. We're solving for slope equals, on the top, I have y2 minus y1. Okay, y2, that's going to be 4 minus, and then y1, -2. Okay, and then on the bottom, x2 minus x1. My x2 is 3 minus my x1 is 0. Now we just simplify. On the top, I know that if there are 2 negatives, negative times a negative, that gives me a positive. And then on the bottom, I know that 3 minus 0, that gives me 3. Simplify some more. On the top, 4 plus 2, that gives me 6. On the bottom is 3. I can definitely simplify that. 6 divided by 3, or 6 over 3, that gives me 2. So my slope is 2. Let's try one more example. All right, let's say we have the point -1, -3, and 2, -5. again, we are still using our slope formula. And then we still need to, highly recommend, label the points. Okay, after they're labeled, we can go ahead and plug in our points to our formula. So m equals, let's see what goes on top. So y2 minus y1. My y2 is -5 minus, and then my y1 is -3. Notice how I put the minus sign and the negative. On the bottom, my x2 minus my x1, which is -1. Again, I put the negative and the minus sign. And now simplify. -5 minus -3. Negative times the negative gives me a positive. Okay, and then on the bottom, same thing. Negative times the negative gives me a positive. Almost there. -5 plus 3, that gives me a -2. And then on the bottom, 2 plus 1 gives me 3. And I cannot simplify that anymore, so I'm just going to leave this as my answer for my slope.